Have you ever met someone who always seems to be in a tough situation but never seems to take responsibility? These are people who constantly put themselves in the role of the victim. They live in a narrative where the world is against them, and nothing that happens is their fault. This type of behavior can be exhausting and can impact not only personal relationships but also the emotional well-being of everyone around. Today, we'll explore how this behavior can affect your life and how to deal with it effectively. When we talk about playing the victim, we're referring to people who, regardless of the circumstances, never take responsibility for their actions and choices. They project blame onto others or external factors, seeking sympathy and attention. Instead of facing challenges with courage, these people hide behind a mask of helplessness, making emotional growth difficult. Why is it so important to recognize this behavior? Because if you don't know how to identify and deal with people who constantly play the victim, it can affect your emotional and mental health. Maintaining this type of relationship can cause significant psychological stress, leading to feelings of guilt, exhaustion, and frustration. Moreover, these interactions can undermine your self-esteem and cause unnecessary conflicts in your life. Living with or being close to someone who always plays the victim can harm your well-being, friendships, and even romantic relationships. That's why understanding how to identify and deal with this type of behavior is crucial to maintaining your peace of mind and healthy relationships. More than that, by recognizing this pattern, you'll be able to set clear boundaries and protect your own sanity. In this video, we will learn how to identify the signs of this behavior, understand the motivations behind it, and most importantly, discover effective ways to deal with these situations. By the end, you'll have the tools needed to recognize and handle people who play the victim without jeopardizing your own mental health. Victim behavior is a psychological pattern where the person sees themselves as constantly suffering and blames others for their difficulties. These people rarely take responsibility for their actions, preferring to see themselves as powerless in the face of circumstances. This behavior can include denial of any contribution to their own problems and a belief that the world is always against them. You've probably seen this happen at work, where someone blames colleagues or management for their own mistakes, never acknowledging their own faults. In personal relationships, this can manifest as someone who constantly sees themselves as wronged, expecting others to take responsibility for their happiness or well-being. This kind of behavior is draining and creates a cycle of negativity that affects everyone around. It's important to differentiate between someone who truly suffers injustices and someone who constantly plays the victim. A person facing true victimization, like abuse or discrimination, is struggling against something external and often unjust. On the other hand, those who play the victim exaggerate or manipulate situations to appear innocent or to attract sympathy and attention. The latter behavior can be especially harmful in interpersonal relationships. People who play the victim often have a negative self-image. They believe they never succeed because of external forces, which reinforces their defeatist mentality. This pattern creates a barrier to self-awareness and personal growth, making it difficult for these people to break free from the cycle of victimization and take control of their lives. This mentality also creates a distorted view of reality. Instead of seeking solutions, people who play the victim blame the world for the negative circumstances in their lives. This not only stifles personal growth but also alienates those around them, creating a cycle of frustration and isolation. Living with or being close to someone who plays the victim can be extremely draining. In romantic relationships, it creates a toxic dynamic where one partner constantly has to rescue the other. In a family environment, tensions rise as the person who plays the victim can create an atmosphere of constant conflict, pitting family members against each other. With friends, these people can push others away who grow tired of dealing with the constant victimization. For those living with someone who plays the victim, the mental health impact is significant. This type of relationship can lead to anxiety, stress, and even depression, as the person feels overwhelmed by the constant emotional demands. Psychological exhaustion is a common consequence, leading to feelings of guilt and helplessness. Moreover, the constant victimization can spread, contaminating the environment and affecting other areas of life. Victim behavior also directly damages self-esteem. A person who constantly sees themselves as a victim loses the ability to recognize their strengths and talents, as they are always focused on what goes wrong. This prevents them from developing self-confidence and believing in their abilities. Similarly, those around them may feel devalued, especially if they are emotionally manipulated into feeling responsible for the victim's happiness. Victimization creates a cycle of personal stagnation. When someone always blames others, they miss the opportunity to reflect on their mistakes and learn from them. Personal growth depends on the ability to recognize flaws, learn from challenges, and take responsibility for one's actions. By remaining in the victim role, the person loses these opportunities for self-development. On a broader scale, victimization can create toxic environments, whether at work, at home, or in social groups. When a person plays the victim, it impacts the dynamics of everyone around, leading to the emergence of resentment and conflict. People who are constantly surrounded by negativity end up internalizing this energy, further harming their quality of life and mental well-being. Several psychological factors can lead someone to adopt the victim role. Past traumas, such as rejection or abandonment, can contribute to the person seeing themselves as someone who has no control over their life. Insecurity also plays an important role, as many people who play the victim are afraid to face their flaws and vulnerabilities. These patterns are often learned in childhood or dysfunctional relationships. Although it may seem counterintuitive, playing the victim offers certain benefits to those who adopt this behavior. People who play the victim can emotionally manipulate others to gain attention, support, and avoid responsibility. By placing themselves in a position of helplessness, they often manage to escape criticism and accountability, creating a cycle where others are always expected to rescue them. Another factor that contributes to this behavior is the fear of failure. By playing the victim, the person can avoid taking responsibility for their mistakes or failures, maintaining a narrative where the blame is never theirs. This protects their fragile self-esteem, but at the same time, it prevents them from growing and learning from challenges. Deep down, this fear of facing reality keeps them trapped in a narrative of victimization. Victim behavior is often a learned pattern, either through family experiences or past relationships. Children who grow up in homes where one parent adopts this posture may internalize this dynamic as normal, perpetuating it into adulthood. Additionally, dysfunctional romantic relationships or friendships can reinforce this behavior over time, making it difficult to break. Breaking the cycle of victimization is difficult because it requires self-awareness and a willingness to take responsibility. For many people, this change can be frightening, as it means letting go of the safety that victimization provides. Moreover, without adequate support, whether from friends, family, or mental health professionals, this transition can seem almost impossible, causing many people to remain trapped in this cycle. The first step in dealing with people who play the victim is to set clear boundaries. It's not healthy to allow them to manipulate your emotions or shift responsibility onto you. This doesn't mean being insensitive, but rather protecting your mental health. By setting boundaries, you help the person realize that their behavior has consequences and that they cannot control other people's lives. To deal with these situations, it's essential to develop assertive communication. This means being clear and direct about how the other person's behavior affects you without being swayed by guilt or emotional manipulation. By speaking in a respectful but firm manner, you create an environment where the person can start reflecting on their actions and their consequences. One of the biggest mistakes we can make when dealing with people who play the victim is reinforcing their behavior. When we take on the role of savior or validate their complaints without question, we're only feeding the cycle of victimization. Instead, it's important to resist the temptation to solve their problems and, instead, encourage them to take responsibility for their actions. This doesn't mean we should be completely indifferent. Offering healthy support is crucial. However, this support should come in the form of encouraging the person to seek professional help or develop their own coping tools. This may include suggesting therapy, reading self-help books, or joining support groups. The goal is to foster emotional growth and independence. Finally, it's important to remember that dealing with people who play the victim can be emotionally draining. Make sure you take care of yourself and your own emotional needs. Being constantly available for someone who plays the victim can eventually affect your own mental health. Therefore, seek support when necessary and don't hesitate to step back from situations that harm your well-being. Today, we discuss the behavior of people who play the victim, how it affects relationships and mental health, and how to handle these situations in a healthy way. It's essential to recognize this pattern, set clear boundaries, and avoid reinforcing the cycle of victimization. Protecting your own emotional health is a priority in any relationship. Now, I'd like to invite you to reflect on your own experiences with people who play the victim. Have you ever been in such situations? How did you handle it? Share your stories in the comments and suggest other ways to deal with this behavior. Your feedback may help others who are going through similar situations. Remember, taking responsibility is the first step toward true personal growth. By recognizing and breaking the cycle of victimization, we make space for a more fulfilling and conscious life. See you in the next video, and don't forget to take care of yourself and your emotions.